It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5:35. Good morning. It is Friday, January 10th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center, a mix of sun and clouds today, high 38. The weekend, it looks like this. Saturday, tomorrow, we'll see snow showers in the morning. Could see a dusting of an inch before it moves out later in the afternoon. The high going to be 35. And then Sunday will be the best day of the weekend. Sunshine, high 41. If you're walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are. It's 30, partly cloudy in Cedarhurst out on Long Island. 25, partly cloudy in New Brunswick over in New Jersey. Of course, the big story continues to be these raging wildfires in California. We do have an overnight story to tell you about here in the city before we get to that, and that involves a fire as well. This wind-whipped 5-alarm fire burning through an apartment building. This is in the Allerton section of the Bronx. It broke out, it was about 2 o'clock this morning. That's the fire department telling us. These are the upper floors of a building on Wallace Avenue. And the heavy winds have really made this thing worse. Firefighters continue to try to bring this fire under control. We're not getting a whole lot more details than that, but the FDNY saying 2 people in the building injured in this fire. Their conditions are not yet known. Of course, as more information comes into us, we'll pass it on to you. But again, a apartment building fire, Allerton section of the Bronx that broke out around 2 o'clock this morning, and we'll continue to follow that. The other story, of course, continues to be this wildfires. There are now 7 of them in the Los Angeles area and Southern California. I keep hoping to wake up to hear that they're contained, but that is not the case. So for a while yesterday, the winds died down in Southern California, and they tried to sort of contain these blazes, do the work that firefighters do to contain big fires like this. And for a while, it looked like they were starting to get these things under control, but the news is just not good. This is the number they're giving us this morning. 10,000 structures have burned down. 10,000. I mean, it's really hard to imagine. 10 people are dead. At least 10 people are dead. Firefighters, lawmakers in the Los Angeles area telling us they think that number will tick up as well. The Kenneth fire, it exploded in a few hours. The Palisades and Eaton fires, each to appear have destroyed about 5,000 or more structures. And this, of course, will put them at the worst fires in California history. And then we have a new fire. This is in the West Hills neighborhood of Los Angeles that grew overnight, spread to about 1,000 acres in a matter of a few hours. Firefighters fanning out across there, trying to figure out how to bring that under control. So the number, again, these numbers are just so hard to get your head around. Nearly 400,000 people in Southern California under either evacuation order or some warning that they may have to evacuate. One of the people who's been covering this over the last 72 hours, correspondent Steve Patterson, says firefighters battling the Palisades fire. I know there's so many of these fires, but one of the 7 fires, they're encountering winds late yesterday of 60 miles per hour.
The major wind event, the one that really pushed all of the flames on top of people's homes, sent embers tumbling to new spot fires, creating more problems and destroying a large part of the Pacific Palisades where I'm standing. That wind event has mostly now laid down and ended.
So Patterson says that the devastation from the Palisades fire as he walks around the neighborhood is just overwhelming.
Officials are now calling this one of the most destructive, if not the most destructive wildfire in the history of Los Angeles. Now 17,000 plus acres, still 0% contained. It has given officials this precious window where they can start putting airdrops on the fire, which hopefully will lead to the major operation ending, and they can start cleanup. They can start the reckoning of the devastation.
The Los Angeles City Fire Chief, Kristen Crowley, putting the destruction of the Palisades fire into perspective. She says preliminary reports just there say thousands of structures destroyed.
It is safe to say that the Palisades fire is one of the most destructive natural disasters in the history of Los Angeles. However, and I want to be very clear here as well, we are still under red flag warning with extreme fire behavior possibilities.
In that fire alone, 17,000 acres have been burned through.
Extreme fire behavior continues to challenge firefighting efforts for the Palisades area. Wind gusts are up to 60 miles per hour and are expected to resume throughout the entire day. Firefighters and air resources will continue to work to protect the community and infrastructures and gain control so that we can contain this fire.
So there have been so many evacuations already, and she's warning people in Los Angeles that certain neighborhoods that are not on fire now but could potentially be on fire, and that you got to keep your ear tuned, your eyes tuned, TV, radio, that kind of thing.
We also ask the public to stay off the roadways and away from any impacted areas, which we want to make sure there's zero room for any other issues when it comes to delays for our firefighters, first responders to get to where we need to go.
And then you had the Los Angeles County Sheriff updating the status of efforts within the region's wildfires. It says his deputies have been performing these evacuations and doing a lot of humanitarian missions over the last 3 days.
Providing food and blankets to people, rescuing people who, unfortunately, did not evacuate when they were asked to.
And he says patrols continue. They've made 20 arrests. That was as of last night, so the number may have gone up, of suspected looters. He says this mandatory evacuation, that order that's in place, he says what it does help with is if there's somebody in the neighborhood that shouldn't be there, it's easier for these deputies to spot and then arrest them.
Last night and this morning, we are up to 20 individuals who chose to go into our areas and deprive these poor people who have been through so much. As you know, when we have an evacuation order by law, if you remain in that area, you are guilty of a misdemeanor. If you commit certain crimes, it could jump up to a felony.
And he does have a message for the people who are considering looting.
If you are in one of these areas and you do not belong there, you are going to be subject to arrest.
WABC News Time 5:09. Let's go back out to Los Angeles, where the mayor there, Karen Bass, defending the city's response to the devastating wildfires. She held a press conference yesterday where reporters were pressing her about leaving the country. She was in Ghana when it was well known that the weather conditions, they say, had the potential for these catastrophic wildfires.
Let me just say, first and foremost, my number one focus, and I think the focus of all of us here with one voice, is that we have to protect lives, we have to save lives, and we have to save homes.
Unsatisfied with that answer, reporters pressed her. They insist that she speak about the perception that the city was unprepared for the scope of the wildfires that broke out and that she should have stayed home.
Rest assured that
when that did not
rest
happen.
assured, let me finish. When lives have been saved and homes have been saved, we will look at what worked, what didn't work, and correct or hold accountable any department, individual, etc.
Mayor Bass is not ready to take any of the blame, says there's time to review all of this, and she says she'll be the one to lead that charge.
But my focus right now is on the lives and on the homes. We also know that fire hydrants are not constructed to deal with this type of massive devastation, and that the number one problem was the fact that we weren't able to do the air support because of the winds. The water problems are a little better now because the winds are such that we can go up and have the air support. And you know that that was the reason that the devastation was so bad, the unprecedented wind.
And the mayor talking about these winds, blaming them and the winds for the fire hydrants that went dry, that have been dry.
We also know that fire hydrants are not constructed to deal with this type of massive devastation, and that the number one problem was the fact that we weren't able to do the air support because of the winds.
Now, of course, she's not the only one that's getting a lot of criticism. California Governor Gavin Newsom getting his fair share as well, being criticized by a lot of people for the state's wildfire response. He had this moment yesterday where he was confronted by a woman at her daughter's school. And this woman wanted to get the governor's attention as the cameras were following him around. And it led to this moment that you and I are going to hear for the first time. I haven't heard this myself.
Governor, you got a second? Governor, I live here, Governor.
That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
I'm sorry. There's literally, I've tried 5 times. That's why I'm walking around to make the call.
Why is the president not taking your call?
Because it's not going through. So
Why?
I have to get cell service.
So let's get it. Let's get it. I want to be here when you call the president.
I appreciate it. I'm doing that right now. And it's to immediately get reimbursements, individual assistance, and to help you. I'm devastated for you. I'm so sorry, especially for your daughter. I have 4 kids losing the school.
Everyone who went to school there, they lost their homes. They lost 2 homes because they were living in one and building another. Governor, please tell me, what are you going to do with the president right now?
We're getting the resources to help rebuild.
Why was there no water in the hydrants, Governor?
That's all literally.
Is it going to be different next time?
It has to be. Has to be. Of course.
What are you going to do?
I'm doing
to
everything.
Fill the hydrants. I would fill them up personally. You know that.
I literally have.
I would fill up the hydrants myself.
I understand.
But would you do that?
I would do whatever I can.
But you're not. I see do you know there's water dripping over there, Governor? There's water coming out there. You can use it.
I appreciate it. I'm going to make the call to address everything I can right now, including making sure people are safe.
I'd like to make sure you do. Can I have an opportunity to at least tell people you're doing what you're saying you're doing? Could somebody have a contact? Can I have your contact information?
Right now.
Yeah. Wild moment with the Governor Newsom there yesterday in Southern California. Meanwhile, the wildfires have forced the movement of Monday's, this is, lightweight compared to what's going on, but it's forced the movement of Monday's wild card matchup between the Rams and the Vikings to Arizona now.
The league announced Thursday that the game will be played at State Farm Stadium, home of the Arizona Cardinals. Rams head coach Sean McVay said at a presser that some members of the team staff had their homes impacted by the fires. This isn't the first time an NFL game was moved to Arizona due to California wildfires. In 2003, the Miami Dolphins played the San Diego Chargers at Sun Devil Stadium in Tempe as the Chargers Stadium was being used as an evacuation site. In Phoenix, I'm at Mattinson.
All right, we Americans can be incredibly generous in these moments. I think unlike a lot of people around the rest of the world, stepping up big time to help people out in Southern California. One of the organizations already doing so is a charity out of Stamford, Connecticut. It's called AmeriCares. They're deploying teams since yesterday to deliver essential medicines, medical supplies, these hygiene kits and first aid items to people who've lost everything. You just think about it. You lost your house. You don't have anything. So you need like blood pressure medicine. You just need like a hygiene kit, deodorant, toothbrush, toothpaste. So AmeriCare has been out there already with these crews handing that kind of thing out over the last 24 hours.
We have toothbrushes, combs, basic kind of washcloth. These kind of supplies go such a long way for someone who's just had their entire life and home uprooted. So having some of these basic comforts and supplies to have readily available can go such a long way.
Yeah, we were watching video of them hand out these kits, and you can imagine people were pretty happy to have them.
It's really important that we are prepared in those in-between seasons so that we're ready to go when needed. We know that particularly people with chronic diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, respiratory conditions, they are going to need that longer-term stock of their medications that they often go without when they leave their home so quickly.
Yeah, great job done by AmeriCares. 5:15, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Happy Friday. Good morning, Justin Alec.
Happy Friday. Good morning to you, Noah Malin. Start here on the college gridiron. The college football playoff. It continued with the start of the semifinals round and the Capital One Orange Bowl between 7-seed Notre Dame and 6-seeded Penn State. And it is the Fighting Irish that outlasted the Nittany Lions, winning 27-24 to punch their ticket to the national championship game on January 20th. Notre Dame's Christian Gray picked off Penn State quarterback Drew Aller to set up a 19-yard drive that ended with Midge Jeter's winning 41-yard field goal. The Irish, now 14-1 overall, seeded 7th in this. The first 12-team college playoff will have a chance to bring their 12th title and first since 1988 back under the Golden Dome. Penn State coach James Franklin fell to 4-20. With the Nittany Lions against teams ranked in the AP Top 10, the 6th-seeded Nittany Lions ended the season at 13-3. Notre Dame's opponent will be the winner tonight of the Texas and Ohio State semifinal in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. Kickoff is scheduled for 7:30 p.m. from Arlington. with Ohio State heading in as 6-point favorites. In the NFL, we're looking ahead to the start of the playoffs this weekend in wild card round action. Tomorrow in the AFC, the 5-seed Chargers will visit the 4-seed Texans as 3-point favorites at 4:30 p.m., with the winner moving on to face the 1-seed Chiefs in the divisional round before the 3-seed Ravens welcome in the 6-seed Steelers as 9.5-point favorites for an 8 p.m. kickoff. And on Sunday, first-round action in the AFC wraps up with the 2-seed Bills hosting the 7-seed Broncos as 8-point favorites at 1 p.m. before the NFC slate gets underway with the 2-seed Eagles welcoming in the 7-seed Packers as 4.5-point favorites at 4:30 p.m. Don't talk to me during that time frame.
Give me a final score of that game.
Final score of that game? I'm very, very confident going into this football game. I think the Eagles pretty much across the board are a better football team.
But is Jalen Hurts going to be okay?
I think he's going to be okay. He was a full participant in practice yesterday. And the Packers are banged up, man. No Jair Alexander. He's their top cornerback. So who's going to guard A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith? I know they have a good safety in Xavier McKinney. But he's really the only force they got going for him on defense at the moment. And their offense, they're going to be without wide receiver 1, Christian Watson. And Jordan Love's got that banged up finger. So we'll see how the Packers look on Sunday afternoon.
Wait, but what's the final score?
The final score is going to be 27-21 Eagles.
Oh, so close game.
It'll be a relatively close game, but the score will not be indicative of the time of possession. I think will be heavily in the Eagles' favor.
Are you going to be in the Philly for this game?
I'm not going to be in Philly for this game. No, I didn't get hooked up with ticks.
Oh, sorry.
No. Yeah. Why don't you rub it in?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
You can come over and watch it with me.
I don't think you want to be around me during that game. In prime time on Sunday night, it'll be the 3-seed Buccaneers welcoming in the 6-seed Commanders as 3-point favorites for an 8 p.m. kickoff before the 5-seed Vikings get going against the 4-seed Rams as 2.5-point road favorites come Monday night. The NFL has moved that game to Arizona. The league announced last night, saying the decision was made in the, quote, interest of public safety as those wildfires do continue to ravage Southern California. The game was originally scheduled to take place at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood at 8 p.m. on Monday. It will now be played at Glendale's State Farm Stadium, home of the Arizona Cardinals, at the same time on Monday night. That is your Sports Note, and I'm Justin Alec on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 520. A lot of people reaching out to me asking me how Joe Crummey's doing. Of course, Joe Crummey was a talk show host here, 77 WABC. I think it was 3 or 4 years I sat next to him, something like that. I don't remember anymore, but he was a lot of fun to work with. Anyway, of course, he lives in Southern California, and I've been communicating with him, and I was worried, too, because normally I hear right back when I text or call or whatever, but he finally got back to me last night, and the good news is he says his house is okay for now, but he says so far it's been a very close call. So obviously if I hear more from Joe, I'll pass it on to you. Down to Washington, the Supreme Court allowing President-elect Trump's sentencing in the New York hush money case to go forward. The High Court rejecting Trump's request to block criminal proceedings in the case.
Well, they called for an appeal, and as you know, they acknowledged what the judge said about no penalty, and there's no penalty. But we're going to appeal anyway, just psychologically, because frankly, it's a disgrace.
Yeah, Trump not happy with this 5-4 decision with 4 conservative judges dissenting.
It's a judge that shouldn't have been on the case. He's a highly conflicted judge, and they called for an appeal. So I read it, and I thought it was a fair decision, actually. So I'll do my little thing tomorrow. They can have fun with their political opponent.
The sentencing hearing is scheduled for today, by the way. Trump's inauguration, of course, is set for January 20th. The mother of a January 6 rioter killed during the attack on the U.S. Capitol says President-elect Donald Trump called her this week.
Mickey Whithaft, the mother of Ashley Babbitt, says Trump phoned her this week and sent a message to January the 6th defendants saying he loved them and to keep their chins up. Trump has promised to pardon many of the nearly 1,300 defendants who have been convicted of inciting violence at the Capitol that day. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Did you watch any of this Jimmy Carter funeral yesterday? President Biden, one of the people giving a eulogy, says his friendship with former President Jimmy Carter taught him about the strength of character.
Today, many think he was from a bygone era. But in reality, he saw well into the future.
Biden recalled being the first senator to endorse Carter to run for the White House back in the 70s. Former President Jimmy Carter's grandson, Jason, says his grandmother were just regular people.
From the moment that he woke up until he laid his head, his life was a testament to the goodness of God. To the presidents and first ladies, it is a great honor to have you here. You know the human side of the American presidency like no others.
Some interesting moments. Ted Mondale delivered a tribute written by Walter Mondale, of course, as vice president, before his passing.
Today we join in sadness to honor our dear friend, President Carter, for his extraordinary years of principled and decent leadership and his courageous commitment to civil rights and human rights.
And the son of President Gerald Ford upheld a deal his father made with former President Jimmy Carter. At Carter's state funeral, Stephen Ford recalled how the two men had asked each other to deliver a eulogy at their funerals before proceeding to read the eulogy that had been written by his father, Gerald Ford, before he passed away.
Dad was thrilled to agree. After that call, as you can imagine, both of them got off the phone and had a pretty good chuckle, considering which one of them would return in person to deliver that second eulogy.
Of course, the most interesting moment at these state funerals is to watch the ex-presidents and how they interact with them. All 5 living presidents in attendance at the National Cathedral yesterday. There was this moment where George W. Bush walked into the aisle. So it was Melania Trump on the end of the aisle, President-elect Trump next to her, and then Barack Obama next to Donald Trump. Well, George Bush was going to be sitting next to Barack Obama, so he ignored the Trumps. He sort of like gave a sort of playful hit in the stomach to Barack Obama and then shook hands with Mike Pence and other people behind as he sat down. So he totally ignored the Trumps, and you could see Donald Trump looking at him like, why didn't you shake my hand? Then you had this great moment where Barack Obama and Donald Trump were sitting next to each other and were having just a long conversation. At one point, you could see Barack Obama laughing. Now, a lip reader from the New York Post, you got to love the New York Post, was trying to read what the two were saying to each other. And what this lip reader says is that Donald Trump, that they were talking serious business, and that Donald Trump said, I have a question to ask you about something serious, but I don't want to do it here. Will you meet me in the hallway of the cathedral afterwards so I can ask you this question? This according to the lip reader. So, take that at what it is. And that apparently they had some conversation in the hallway after the service. So it'd be interesting to hear what the two were talking about. 526, of course, this story has gone away about New Orleans, right? With the fire, it is overtaken. But a New Jersey man killed in the New Year terror attack in New Orleans was laid to rest yesterday.
Friends and family of Billy DeMeo packed Church of St. Catherine in Holmdel for a funeral mass, and that was followed by a long procession of cars to Holmdel Cemetery. The 25-year-old account executive was in New Orleans to ring in the new year with friends. DeMeo, a 2017 graduate of Holmdel High School, where he was a standout lacrosse player, flags throughout New Jersey lowered to half staff in honor of DeMeo Friday, and they'll also fly at half staff in Louisiana, as the state's been honoring each of the 14 victims with their own day. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
And former NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton being tapped to help New Orleans as a security consultant following the terror attacks.
Former Police Commissioner Bill Bratton is heading down south to work as a consultant with the New Orleans Police, looking into safety concerns following a New Year's Day terrorist attack. The public is demanding answers from officials on the lapses in security that led to 14 people being killed on Bourbon Street. The City Council of New Orleans is launching an investigation into the street barrier systems in high foot traffic areas. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5:35. Good morning. It is Friday, January 10th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center, a mix of sun and clouds today, high 38. The weekend, it looks like this. Saturday, tomorrow, we'll see snow showers in the morning. Could see a dusting of an inch before it moves out later in the afternoon. The high going to be 35, and then Sunday will be the best day of the weekend. Sunshine, high 41. If you're walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are. It's 30, partly cloudy in Cedarhurst out on Long Island, 25 partly cloudy in New Brunswick over in New Jersey, and it's 27 and clear right outside our Midtown studios. We'll start this half hour up in the Bronx. The United Bodegas of America calling for enhanced safety measures to protect bodega owners across the city because there's this robbery spree that began back in September. 49 bodegas have been targeted over a span of 3 months from September until late December with a group of burglars that have been stealing ATMs. The United Bodegas of America now offering a $5,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest. Here's leader of that organization, Fernando Mateo.
How could we have not made an arrest? How could we have not identified who these guys are? They drive cars. They drive in the streets. There's got to be cameras that can track these vehicles.
So far, NYPD has been unable to catch up with them. They think part of the issue is these individuals are using stolen vehicles and stolen license plates to commit these crimes. So when they drive away, they end up chasing these cars that they probably drop off somewhere. Here's somebody, one of the bodega owners across the city who has been robbed of these ATMs.
We don't see no progress. We don't see no improvement like it, and doing a little bit better. No, it's still like the same.
Yeah, we're talking about thousands of dollars that have been stolen from ATMs across the city. WABC News Time, 5:39. So you heard from Joe that traffic seems to be a little lighter coming, at least on the Hudson River crossing. There's an outcry from some drivers about congestion pricing, specifically those who are using the 59th Street, I guess they call it the Ed Koch Queensboro Bridge. They say there's no way to get from Manhattan to Queens without paying the $9 fee, even if they have no intention of going into the congestion pricing zone. Apparently, if you come on the lower level, it takes a snapshot of your, license plate of your car, and you get charged even if you make a right turn and you start going uptown.
I'm not going to be congesting Manhattan with my car anymore.
Definitely not good. I'm not happy.
Yeah, so some, of course, say this is just totally unfair, which makes sense to me.
They've been the most vocal people that have been against the congestion pricing, saying it just hurts them the most and hits them the most.
Probably not as fair as when you, because the congestion, you're trying to avoid the congestion in Manhattan, not going the other way. No, probably it's not fair, but yeah, such is life, right?
Well, I don't know if it's such a life. If you're going uptown, you shouldn't get charged $9. MTA will have to work that out. The first week of congestion pricing on the LIRR, people say it is much more crowded and that there's been parking problems at the LIRR lots, at least some of them. And so they're trying to figure out, is this a reaction to congestion pricing, or as Joe suggested, it's people just coming back after the holiday break?
We missed our train about 20 minutes ago. We've been looking for parking close to 30 minutes now.
We pay enough to live here. The government just needs to do a better job.
I would hope that there would be increased service to offset the congestion pricing.
We were watching some of these drivers just ride around and around parking garages yesterday on the island, or parking lots, searching for a spot. But again, not yet ready to say, at least the LIRR, that this is connected to congestion pricing. But there are people on the LIRR who say, yeah, I'm no longer driving into the city because I don't want to pay that $9 toll.
I'm actually a commuter that has switched from driving to the train.
We're jammed in, but you know what? It beats driving.
LIRR says it can adjust train capacity. In fact, it did yesterday, adding cars to some of the train lines where they were seeing more riders. The LIRR's president is Robert Free. And he says they're watching this all, of course, very closely, too, knowing that congestion pricing was beginning this week. And they're not sure yet either if this is connected to congestion pricing or it's just everybody being called back to work. And what we actually saw also, let's not forget this part of the story, is that people who are working fully remote, a lot of them were told January was the time they'd have to come back to work. So that could be what's going on as well.
It's too early to say if congestion pricing has any impact. It could be people returning from work for the holidays. It could be return to work mandates, or it just could be normal ridership gains.
Yeah, I think we're going to need a couple of weeks to sort it out. By the way, some 15% of the revenue generated from congestion pricing is supposed to go to LIRR infrastructure, upgrades to stations, tracks, and trains, that kind of thing. And then on day 6, so yesterday, so it started Sunday, so that's Sunday, so today is day 6. Is that right? Yeah, day 6. All eyes are on what is happening, of course, above ground. But what we've been seeing on the subways is there's been ridership uptick as well. On Monday, it was up 4% from a year ago. Tuesday, it was up 12%. Wednesday, 7%. We haven't gotten the numbers from yesterday, but you see the trend. More people are taking the subways.
Usually I commute in between 8 and 9, and the trains have been too packed that I actually adjusted my schedule today to try to avoid the crowds. Hopefully they add some more trains and since we're filling them up so quickly.
Now, 80% of the revenue generated from congestion pricing is supposed to go to improvements in New York City transit. And so people say, okay, if people are leaving their cars home, or maybe they're driving into areas not in the zone and then taking a subway, then you got to make the subways better. That's ultimately the goal here. And so people are saying, hey, this has to happen fast.
We're replacing all that track and power and structure that came in when FDR was the president, Franklin Roosevelt. All that is being replaced. Projects are being done on time and on budget. This is a new MTA.
That's Jan Oliber, the head of the MTA. Riders say, okay, we want to see if you're going to fulfill those promises.
I hope this happens. I've lived in the city for over 20 years, and it's the subway. There's always in construction. There's always repairs. But aside from the swiping system, I haven't noticed much of improvement.
It's like all New Yorkers. It's a labor of love. You need the subway, you ride on the subway, you wish it was a little more reliable.
And meanwhile, the speeds in the congestion pricing zone earlier this week, according to a traffic group that does that kind of thing, that checks traffic speeds, they were between 11 and 12 miles per hour, which is what they were before congestion pricing began, right? Part of the idea of congestion pricing is there would be less traffic. So if you paid that $9 toll, at least the one thing you would get was the idea that you would get an easier commute home. And I can talk from personal experience. Earlier this week, Monday, Tuesday, I got home sometimes the fastest I have in months on end. But yesterday and Wednesday, no, it took me a long time to get home. It was back to normal. So we'll see if that all works itself out as well. But we'll continue to follow, of course, the congestion pricing story. 5:45, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Here's Justin Allen.
Who paid you to say that?
What's that?
That it took you a record time to get home.
No, Monday and Tuesday. But then Wednesday and Thursday, it took me the normal time, like 40 minutes to get home.
Oh, so it didn't last?
No.
Uh-huh. Naturally. Of course. This isn't going to stick, man. You know that.
Well, I was hoping it would, because then you say, okay, at least if I'm slapping down $9, I get home earlier, there's some benefit to it.
Right, but that only went on for 2 days.
Yeah.
Here's sports on the college gridiron. A college football playoff continued at the start of the semifinals round, and the Capital One Orange Bowl between 7-seed Notre Dame and 6-seeded Penn State. And it is the Fighting Irish that outlasted the Nittany Lions, winning 27-24 to punch their ticket to the national championship game on January 20th. Notre Dame's Christian Gray picked off Penn State quarterback Drew Aller to set up a 19-yard drive that ended with Mitch Jeter's winning 41-yard field goal. It's a heck of a last name there. The Irish didn't end 14-1, but they are at 14-1 now, seeded 7th in the first 12-team college playoff. Will have a chance to bring their 12th title and first since 1988 back under the Golden Dome. Penn State coach James Franklin fell to 4-20 with the Nittany Lions against teams ranked in the AP top 10. The 6-seeded Nittany Lions ended the season at 13-3. Notre Dame's opponent will be the winner tonight of the Texas and Ohio State semifinal in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. Kickoff is scheduled for 7:30 from Arlington, with Ohio State heading in as 6-point favorites. In the NFL, we're looking ahead to the start of the playoffs this weekend in wild card round action. Tomorrow in the AFC, the 5-seed Chargers will visit the 4-seed Texans as 3-point favorites at 4:30, with the winner moving on to face the 1-seed Chiefs in the divisional round before the 3-seed Ravens welcome in the 6-seed Steelers as 9.5-point favorites for an 8 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. First round action in the AFC wraps up with the 2-seed Bills hosting the 7-seed Broncos as 8-point favorites at 1 p.m. before the NFC slate gets underway with the 2-seed Eagles welcoming in the 7-seed Packers as 4.5-point favorites at 4:30. In primetime on Sunday night, it'll be the 3-seed Bucks welcoming in the 6-seed Commanders as 3-point favorites for an 8 p.m. kickoff before the 5-seed Vikings get going against the 4-seed Rams as 2.5-point favorites, road favorites, I should say, come Monday night. The NFL has moved that game to Arizona. The league announced last night saying the decision was made in the, quote, interest of public safety as wildfires do continue continue to ravage Southern California. The game was originally scheduled to take place at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood at 8 p.m. On Monday. It will now be played at Glendale State Farm Stadium, home of the Arizona Cardinals, at the same time on Monday night. To the NHL and the ice at MSG, where Sam Carrick scored in overtime and Igor Shesterkin made 21 saves, and the Rangers beat the Devils 3-2. Up next for both squads come tomorrow night. The Rangers will visit the Golden Knights in Vegas, and then the Devs will host the Tampa Bay Lightning. Speaking of Vegas, Captain Anders Lee, playing in his 800th career game, scored a goal, and Ilya Sorokin made 30 saves as the Islanders beat the Golden Knights 4-0 last night. Up next for the Isles, they'll play at Utah tomorrow. Finally, after a quiet night last night, let's look ahead to tonight's local NBA action at 7:30. The Knicks will welcome in the Oklahoma City Thunder before the Nets get going against the Nuggets in Denver at 9 p.m. That's your sports. No, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:50. Mayor Adams giving his state of the city yesterday at a time when he's battling corruption charges. Spoke to a crowd. This was up at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, talking about how he says the city has improved and is safer than when he took office.
To keep New Yorkers safe, we put thousands of new officers onto our streets and took nearly 20,000 illegal guns off our streets.
Adams speaking about policies to make city more affordable. He says New Yorkers got the new trash containerization program to help with the rats, permanent outdoor dining, among other things.
We opened the country's largest outdoor dining program, tore down hundreds of scaffolding sheds, and launched the trash revolution to move every single trash bag off our streets into containers.
But it is interesting when you hear from New Yorkers who mostly probably did not see the mayor's state of the city. They say they're unhappy with him, even, as he's making this run clearly for another 4 years. He isn't officially announced, but I imagine he will. Some say they're tiring of him and don't think they'll vote for him come November.
I don't think I would vote for him again. He has some personal things going on with his team that I'm concerned about. I go to work every day, try not to cheat or steal, right? And something is off there.
And a lot of the New Yorkers that were complaining about the mayor yesterday were saying they just want the city to be the way it used to be.
I don't feel safe. Not anywhere, I guess.
Just basically, trains is a mess. Don't feel safe. Pretty much that's the gist of it.
The homeless is kind of crazy, and the crackheads and all the drug addicts around are kind of ridiculous. And I don't know. I feel unsafe.
We opened the country's largest outdoor dining program.
Okay, well, that's what he said earlier. But anyway, there was a group of NYPD sergeants who protested outside his speech yesterday, upset that contract negotiations have stalled on pay increases.
It's not fair that I supervise police officers and they get paid more than me.
Yeah. So anyway, it doesn't seem like a lot of people are happy with the mayor as he begins his campaign for another 4 years. 5:52, a grand jury indictment handed down yesterday against a man accused of abducting a Patchogue teen and restraining her on the boat. This was the story we had been following since early December of Emma Ray Gervasi. She's the 14-year-old who walked out of her home on Long Island barefoot, got into a car, and her father spent the next 3 weeks looking for her, found her on a houseboat in Islip. And they're now saying that this 64-year-old Francis Buckheit was holding her against her will. He's been charged with DUI. He's allegedly had slurred speech, a blood alcohol content that was high when they found him. He has pled not guilty to a bunch of charges. His attorney says that he's an emotional mess because the story out there about him, she says, is not correct.
He's emotional. He's upset. He maintains his innocence. These are very serious charges. There's a lot more to the story than what's being reported. No, I cannot at this time.
He is being held behind bars, due back in court on January 16th. While we're out on Long Island, Nassau County has a rabies problem for the first time since 2016, and they're actually blaming New York City for the issue.
We want to raise awareness, not alarm.
Dr. Irina Gelman, she's the Nassau County Health Commissioner, says the Big Apple has failed to bait for rabid animals on the Nassau-Queens border, and she says that's the issue, that they're finding these rabid raccoons. She says New York's not doing its job.
That was a rabid raccoon in a garbage can, I believe, that just jumped out prior to New Year's.
Yeah, so that's the issue over there. Back here in the city, if you have an active lifestyle, New York apparently is the place that you want to be.
A new study has found the Big Apple to be in the top cities ranked on criteria such as walkability and access to athletic centers, fields, and hiking trails. Wallet Hub put New York second behind the Hawaiian capital of Honolulu. From bike rentals to ice rinks, the city has the resources to keep people moving through every season. However, the same can't be said for neighboring city Newark, who ranks 93 out of 100 on the list. New Yorkers also showed interest online in staying active, searching workouts and exercise equipment. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
And you'll need that workout if you are eating the Girl Scout cookies that are up for sale right now. Have you been hit up for a box or 2 or 5 or 10? I have been by my niece and some other people. And the cookies are more expensive this year, the Girl Scout cookies. I mean, I can take a quart of milk and a sleeve of those Thin Mints and polish them off in about a half hour or so. But they've raised the price from $5 to $7. That seems expensive. Now, I get it all goes to a good cause, but $7 for a box of cookies, it seems like a lot of money.
The price is increasing from $5 a box to $7 a box, and we held the $5 a box for 5 years.
Yeah, so they said they just weren't cutting it anymore. I guess they leave it up to individual troops to decide how much they're going to charge. So it's $7 if you're buying a box in Nassau or Suffolk County, some places in New Jersey as well.
The deciding factor really was, what do we need to be able to provide to the girls? And can we afford to do it? And we couldn't afford to do it any longer at 5.
So there's also a big change in the cookie roster as well. 2 of the iconic types of Girl Scout cookies, s'mores and Toastiers, which I'm not familiar with. This is the last season that they'll be sold, so stock up if that's your brand of cookie. In fact, last time they discontinued a cookie with the Girl Scouts, it was back in 2023. And when they were all sold, you can now no longer find them except on eBay, selling for 4 times the price that they normally do. So even though they're $7 a box, no doubt I will be slapping down a fair amount of money, I'm sure, for those Thin Mints. Oh, the Samoas are good, too. With a quarter milk, man, you can polish those things off no time. 5:57, traffic, transit on the 7s. Here's Joe Nolan.
Man, they were $10 a box. You get them. I mean, they
$20.
Yeah, I know. They're addicting. They are so good, those Girl Scouts. You know, they used to be made in Newark.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on Plainfield Avenue, or Elizabeth Avenue there at the Bury. Bury used to make them.
You know,
in that old Bury factory.
I found other Thin Mints, like the equivalent of them. They sell them, you know, at whatever basic grocery store. And somehow the Girl Scouts got that recipe down. Yeah.
Yeah, they're better.
They're much better. And if you freeze them, oh, my God.
Oh, then now we're talking.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.